last January 14, the NGCP, along with other resource agencies, were required to prepare the respective comments and documents related to the issues raised as requested by the committee members. A few key points were raised in the last meeting. The DOE confirmed that delays in NGCP's transmissions projects have an effect on the overall cost of generation, which affects the price paid for by consumers. It was also pointed out that NGCP was not compliant from 2011 to 2022 with respect to the non-passing of its franchise tax to consumers. Some members flagged NGCP's possible violation in terms of franchise grant, given that it opted to execute a share swap to comply with the public participation requirement. This led the SEC to state that a share swap is not a public transaction. As such, it is not akin to a public offering. Other members raised concerns as to who controls the NGCP, especially since its minority shareholder, chairperson, is a foreign national. To further shed light on this matter, we ordered the submission of various documents and position papers from the involved parties. So far, we have received submissions from ERC, SEC, and TransCo. After their inability to produce certain documents, we also issued a subpoena ducis tecum to NGCP for the submission of the following: shareholders agreement between Synergy Grid, One Taipan Holdings, and Pacifica 21, GIS and other corporate documents, GIS and other documents, Kalakahay Power Corporation, GIS and other documents, SGDPI, GIS and other corporate documents, One Taipan Holdings, Inc., GIS and other corporate documents, Pacifica 21 Holdings, Inc. The first attempt to serve the subpoena was effected on January 16, but it was refused to see it as apparently the NGCP allegedly no longer holds office in Quezon City, as stated in its SEC documents. As such, the subpoena was served on January 17 at its San Juan office. May remind everyone that NGCP was ordered to produce documents by Tuesday. However, it has not yet submitted the documents until today. We would like to reiterate that the lone purpose of this inquiry, which is to bring down the price of electricity. This is why we implore everyone with the power and influence to do so and cooperate in relieving the Filipino people of this burden. Tulungan po natin ang isa't isa, tulungan po natin ang mamayang Pilipino. Magandang hapon at maraming salamat po sa inyo lahat. Okay, so we understand that there were documents that were submitted just now. So we will review, and I would like to thank NGCP for submitting the documents. As they say, better late than never. So thank you very much for submitting the documents today, and we will review these documents for the future hearings of the committee. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair?
Yes. Before I recognize Honorable Fernandez, I would like to remind everyone that there were supposed to be two presentations last hearing, which were not presented because of the time element. So before we continue with the questions, so that we can discuss it intelligently, may I ask first that the presentations, para po matapos na po yung mga presentation, di na ho kayo, then nakakahiya ho, dapat ho last week pa ho nyo dapat pinisent po yan. I will ask you now to present while we're going to prepare some of our questions based on your presentation. Okay?
Mr. Chairman, this is an administrative issue because a while ago you were discussing about the invitations, and I wasn't able to ask some clarification on the invitation that we sent to the resource persons. Like, we have invited the chairman of the NGCP, si Shu Guang Chao. Nandito po ba siya ngayon?
Yes. They have letters. That's why after the presentation, we will call NGCP so that NGCP will explain the letters of all the persons that we were invited but were not able to show up in today's hearing. So now we will ask first,
So,
the Honorable
excuse me.
Eunice Junicio is recognized. You're here. Thank you very much for coming. Oh, thank you for coming.
So we're going to present some presentation
Yes,
first,
the
and then we
presentation
will go back to the administrative
Yes,
matters. Thank you,
yes.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. So we now proceed. May I ask TransCo to please make your presentation first. Then after that, the next presenter would be
EMOP.
EMOP. Okay. Is that the right presentation? IMAP, right? IMAP. Okay, so we start first with TransCo.
Good
Please
afternoon,
present.
Mr. Chair.
Silence requested.
Good afternoon. I'm Dina Dizon, Vice President of TransCo. Mr. Chair, our President is currently in a board meeting right now, TransCo board meeting, but he will catch up later once that finishes. So we present the aspect of the projects when it comes to transmission rate setting. May we request the Secretariat to pull up our materials, please? It's the other. This is IEMOP. Nakalagay kasi 4 inches. So again, good afternoon. Our presentation intends to provide insights and show the implications of the projects in transmission rate setting. Next slide, please. The transmission projects, sorry about that. The IPIRA has allowed ERC to enforce a methodology for rate setting that not only takes into account efficiencies, but also penalizes the regulated entities for inefficiencies. As the regulator, the ERC must aim to balance fair returns to the investors and at the same time ensure reasonable price of electricity for the consumers. Next slide, please. The transmission projects that are much discussed go into what is referred to as the regulatory asset base that the regulator considers in setting transmission rates. The RAB, as we call it, in fact, is the primary driver of the two components of NGCP's maximum annual revenue, or the MAR. And the two are the profit component, this is in red, and the depreciation in green. In fact, for the third regulatory period final determination for NGCP, these components represented 82% of NGCP's MAR, with return on capital or the profit component as 66% and the depreciation as 16%. This being said, the proper consideration of the RAB value is essential to the whole rate determination process. Next slide, please. The objective of performance-based regulation is to ensure that only completed projects and efficient costs of ongoing projects are included in the opening RAB. The opening RAB is the reckoning point for the regulatory period, and the reason for including this only is to maintain fair and reasonable transmission rate. Allowing ongoing projects is not bad per se, since it encourages investment by the transmission network service provider. What is important, though, in the whole process to promote fairness is the reconciliation portion. Only completed projects are added to, and a reasonable provision for ongoing projects are included in the opening RAB. While forecast CapEx expenditures are allowed to earn the weighted average cost of capital, the reconciliation process ensures that there are efficiency adjustments as well. Next slide, please. Here is some more detailed representation of the previous slide. The point we want to highlight here is that the projected depreciation component is based on only on existing and newly completed projects. This is a fair framework. However, Under the recent as-spent approach adopted by the majority decision of the regulator for the lapse period 2016 to 2022, the depreciation for ongoing projects, which for the most part encountered project delays, had been added to the depreciation building block for the annual revenue requirements or MAR of NGCP. Just to illustrate the point, next slide please. We want to tie in the discussion of the performance of NGCP during the fourth reg period, considering the draft determination allows the as-spent approach for the lapsed period. The figures here have been lifted from the ERC draft final determination. And NGCP completed only 75 projects out of 258, or 29% of the target, 258 projects. And in money value, this is roughly 10%. Next, NGCP completed much of the other projects within 2023 to 2024, or beyond the fourth regulatory period. There are projects with maximum delay exceeding 9 years. Similarly, 51 of 68 ongoing projects, or 75%, are also delayed, with the maximum delay, again, for some exceeding 9 years. With the noted delays, the ERC even filed NGCP for unjustified for these, and a total penalty of 15.8 million was imposed. Next, please. The adoption of the as-spent approach results in a higher transmission rate by 80 centavos per kilowatt hour, give or take a few. These pieces of information have been lifted from the actual draft final determination released by the ERC. So our last slide is on the potential impact of delayed transmission projects. While there is cost implication directly for the transmission charge, that is, our analysis is that for every 5 billion worth of CapEx, the additional amount of transmission rate is about 1/2 of 1 centavo per kilowatt hour. But there are also indirect impact, like the cost to the economy, then the allowing other alternative sources to come in, so the renewable energy integration benefits are not optimized. And then finally, the higher electricity cost here may be a result of using more expensive alternative power sources because the lines are not available to deliver the cheaper sources. So that's our presentation, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Thank you very much. Marco.
thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I find it a little bit difficult to understand why TransCo is the one passing judgment on the performance of NGCP. I'd like to believe, Mr. Chair, it should be ERC who should be advising us on the aspects and the pertinent indicators for us to understand whether or not NGCP performed well in accordance with the role. Kasi, Mr. Chair, I think it is better for us to determine which performed better in relation to the grid performance. Nung panahon ba ng TransCo o nung panahon na ng NGCP? This is more understandable for us. Lawmakers, kaya naming intindihin ito, ma'am, but I don't think you are in a position to pass judgment on the performance of NGCP. Kayo po ang may-ari niyan eh. Kayo ang may-ari, pero sila po yung operator ngayon. But I think, and Madam ERC, kayo po ang kayo po ang merong role dito eh. But before that, Mr. Chair, I think you made the opening salvo and said that the very purpose of this hearing is for us to determine or to lower the rates of electricity in this country. If that is the primordial objective, I believe, Mr. Chair, the cost share of NGCP in the entire electric bill of our people is only 3%. 52% still in generation. 25% is in distribution. So if we are serious enough in focusing our attention and reducing the electricity in this country, let us focus on which area takes up the largest share. Dapat sa generation tayo eh. Pero ang daming problema po, Mr. Chair eh. I already pointed out this to the BOE. Noon po, ERC muna. If we wanted to reduce the electricity in this country, let me ask the ERC, bakit hanggang ngayon po wala kayong regulations on aggregation? Bakit yun ating pong ARCOA hindi nyo pinatutupad? This is where we can reduce our electricity. Retail competition and open access is a provision in EPIRA that we have not seriously considered. Ilan po yung nag-migrate from the captive market of Meralco? Ilan po kaya? Napakalaki po ng relation nito, Mr. Chair. If we are really serious to lower the electricity in this country, kailangan po nating i-implement po yung EPIRA. Nandun po yung sinasabing retail competition and open access. So, alam po ba ninyo kung ilan ang nakaka-graduate or migrate from the captive market of Meralco para contestable market na sila? Wala naman kayong report eh. What about aggregation? There are no rules on aggregation here. Pagkatapos ni-raise po namin ang issue way noon pa, you suddenly adopted a modality you call performance-based rate. Mr. Chair, before we had EFIRA, ang ating pong modality is RORB. This is return on base rate, which is more practical because everything else is based on CAPEX. Kung ano po yung gastos ninyo, doon tayo kikita. Pero doon sa performance-based na po eh, kung ano lang pinlano nila, hindi pa po natin napatunayan kung talagang yung plano natupad. Doon na po natin ibe-base ang singil. Kaya ang taas-taas po eh. And we need to look into the system loss. Eh, magkano po yung system loss? Meralco, maybe 10%. Electric cooperatives, maybe 20%. Ang taas po. Bakit hindi po ito yung unahin natin? Why are we focusing our attention on the transmission, which is only 3%?
Thank you very much, Honorable Marcoleta.
Ito po yung gusto
Ano
ko
po,
pong
napaganda ho ng inyong
Mr. Chairman.
posisyon at inyong mga tanong.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Chairman.
Honorable
Mr.
Fernandez,
Chair,
po,
into support.
Point of clarification, Mr. Chair.
Klaklaruhin lang po natin to ha. Meron pa ho isa pang presentation.
Yes,
Patapusin po natin muna yung isang presentation, then lahat ng mga nakalista,
Point of
tatawagin ko po
clarification,
kayo
Mr.
para
Chairman.
maayos po yung ating presentation.
Mr. Chairman, point of
Thank you.
clarification and point of information. And hindi po naman natin dinedepensa ang TransCo. But tama po si Congressman Marcoleta that we have to follow kung ano sinasabi ng ating pong EPIRA. And specifically, EPIRA law, binabanggit po yan sa Section 34F. Para po i-determine yung pong rate base, no? TransCo and distribution utility, ang sinasabi, shall not be allowed to include management inefficiencies like cost of project delays. And that's the reason why TransCo, binabanggit po nila yung mga delays ng mga project.
Okay.
And it is the right of the TransCo na sabihin po sa atin, ano itong mga proyekto na nadidelay po. And that's the reason why sinusuportahan po ng EPIRA law under Section 34F that the management inefficiencies and cost of the project delays must be considered and must be updated by the TransCo.
Thank you very
Salamat
much,
po, Mr.
Honorable Dan
Chairman.
Fernandez.
Mr. Chair.
We will now proceed.
Mr. Chair, before we move,
With,
because you gave point of
Lord-
clarification kay Kong
Yeah.
Dan, so it's my time siguro.
No, no,
Just
wala
one
po-
point clarification lang, Mr. Chair.
Before,
I think I discussed already last time.
The Honorable Presti De Jesus,
Mr. Chair.
patapusin po natin muna
Hindi, kasi-
yung IEMOP.
Mr.
So
Chair,
that
very
I will now
important-
entertain all the questions.
Mr.
Because
very-
kung lahat magpo-point of clarification, hindi ho ako matatapos
Mr. Chair,
dito.
last isa lang, Mr. Chair, kasi misleading sinasabi lang delay. Pakisabi nga ako, ano ba reason ng delay? Is it all problem by the NGCP
Wait.
or ERC rin? Or
Maybe
may
that's
court
already
case?
a question Yes, that is already a question for interpretation, and I suggest that you are already on the list, Honorable President Jesus. So now I will now recognize IMAP. Uh, IMAP, may you please prepare for your, we may now deliver your presentation. We're taking notes, okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Can you please, your attorney?
I'm Attorney Richard Nethercott, Mr. Chairman, the President of the Independent Electricity Market Operator of the Philippines, or IEMOP.
Okay, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good afternoon to the honorable members of this committee. So last December 23, we were directed by this committee to prepare a study or a report on the cost impact of delayed projects. Considering the data that are in our possession, what we prepared, Mr. Chairman, is to present to the committee a comparative study of the market price impact of completed transmission line projects. So we focus on 4 completed projects of the NGCP from the last 2 years, particularly, well, actually 3 years. No? We focused on the Mindanao Visayas Interconnection Project, or MVIP, the Mariveles Hermosa and the Hermosa San Jose transmission lines, Cebu Negros Panay Backbone, or CNP3, and the Cebu Bohol Interconnection Project, Mr. Chairman. So may we request thank you, Mr. Chairman. So next slide, please. So these are the considerations or the assumptions that we've used in this project. So the target completion dates were based on the TDP 2020-2040 submitted by NGCP, approved by the DOE. We used the actual energization date reports coming from NGCP, and we also used the average price, the actual average price based on the WSM market results. Next slide, please. Mr. Chairman, just would like to emphasize that this price that we're going to discuss are prices of electricity in the market only. Now, at the average right now, only 20% of the consumption, electricity consumed in the system comes from the market. So this is only representative of that portion. And this is only generation cost. Okay. We have identified market price drivers. So, of course, basically, at the end of the day, price is determined by the interaction between supply and demand. No, moderated maybe by transmission lines. No? So these are the price drivers. For supply, there has to be available supplies. Of course, outages has to be taken into consideration, the offer price. For demand, the economic activities and the seasonality. No? The season actually affects demand levels. Transmission lines also affect prices in terms of congestion and also outages. No? From time to time, transmission lines go into outages. So next slide, please. The first project that we have considered, Mr. Chairman, is the Mindanao Visayas Interconnection Project. So as I said, the reference is the Transmission Development Plan. It was supposed to be completed on December 2020, but the actual energization happened on May 2023. So disconnected Mindanao and Visayas. We have considered the prices, the average prices from January 2021 to April 2023. That is the period without the energization, before energization. Ito po kasi dapat na-energize 2020 per the report. So for that period, the average prices in Luzon were 6.49 for Visayas, this is 7.39, and for Mindanao, for the billing period February 2023 to April 2023. February lang po sa Mindanao because the Mindanao WSM only started in January 2023. The price before MVIP was 6.17. Now, when the MVIP was energized on May 2023, the prices from May 2023 to December 2024 with MVIP are now 5.67 in Luzon, 6.85 in the Visayas, and 4.87 in Mindanao. So yun po yung average prices. Now, we got the difference, no, without and with. And then, meron pong table dyan which says monthly average quantity or spot quantity. Ito po yung binibili sa WESM. For Luzon, that is 618,512 megawatt hours. For Visayas, 155,643 megawatt hours. For Mindanao, it's 140,788 megawatt hours. So we multiply the price difference with this monthly average spot quantity, we get a potential price reduction. So yung price reduction po is 1.99 for Luzon, 1.77 for Visayas, 1.19 for Mindanao. But yung cumulative price reduction potentially could have been 1.2 billion in Luzon, 274 million in the Visayas, 167 million in Mindanao. Now, if we multiply that with the number of months from December 2020 to May 2023, which around 28 months, the potential cumulative price reduction for that period is 34.5 billion pesos in Luzon, 7.6 billion pesos in the Visayas, and 4.7 billion in Mindanao. Next slide, please. The next project we considered is the Mariveles, Hermosa, and Hermosa San Jose transmission lines. Now, there's a map there, Mr. Chairman, showing where these lines are going to. No? Yung isang line po was connected all the way to Tayabas. The other one went to San Jose. This line actually was instrumental in allowing the new power plants constructed in Bataan to be dispatched and transmitted. So, ang target completion date nito based on the TDP 2020-2040 is May or December 2020. The actual energization happened on April 2022. So comparing the prices, the average prices from January 21 to May 2023 without the transmission lines, and from June 2023 to December 2024 with this completed Mariveles San Jose corridor, the price difference is 1 peso and 10 centavos for Luzon. This is also only in the island of Luzon. Now, if we use the spot settlement price, that will be a difference of 1 peso and 47 centavos. And if we multiply that with the monthly average spot quantity for the period from the target completion to actual energization, the potential average monthly price reduction, cumulative, no, is 923 million pesos, Mr. Chairman, or equivalent to 26.7 billion pesos for 29 months. Next slide, please. The third project we considered is the Negros-Panay, Cebu-Negros-Panay or CNP interconnection project number 3. Per the TDP of 2020, no? TDP 2020-2040, the target date is December 2021. The actual energization happened on April 2024. And the computed price difference is 1 peso 19 centavos for Cebu, 1 peso 16 centavos for Negros, and 0.09, no, or 9 centavos in Panay. That was during the period when there was an N-1 contingency imposed in the Panay sub-region. However, after NGCP implemented their SIPs, no, the prices in Panay went down. So if we compare the effective spot settlement prices, the prices in Cebu, the difference is 2 pesos 65 centavos. For Negros, is 2 pesos 86 centavos. And for Panay, it is 2 pesos and 42 centavos. Multiply that with the monthly average spot quantity, the potential monthly price reduction, cumulative, average in Cebu is 136.2 million, 142.42 million in Negros, and 88.8 million in Panay. For 27 months, that translates to 3.6 billion in Cebu, 3.8 billion in Negros, and 2.4 billion in Panay. Next slide, please. The next project, or the last project we considered, Mr. Chairman, for this report is the Cebu-Bohol Interconnection Project. The Cebu-Bohol, this project was targeted for completion last December 2021 based on the TDP of 2020-2040, and the actual energization happened on September 2024. The price difference, the computed price difference based on the spot settlement price is 1.24, Mr. Chairman, and multiplying that with the monthly average spot quantity of 8,964 megawatt hours, we get a potential cumulative monthly price reduction of 11 million for Bohol. For 32 months, that translates to around 354 million. Now, the observations that we have gathered from this study is that transmission lines is only one of the factors affecting price. But the most important contribution of complete and transmission projects, basically, Mr. Chairman, is the improvement of supply reliability and the potential to transmit cheaper power from available resources. So, Mr. Chairman, that concludes our presentation. Thank you for the opportunity. Yes.